Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to those here in the sanctuary and those joining us online. I am Laura Shenham. I'm the Minister of Congregational Life here at First Unitarian Universalist Society of San Francisco. I'm joined on the chancel today by our senior minister, Reverend Vanessa Southern, and our worship associate, Dennis Adams. We are supported this morning by our many volunteers and staff who provide our presence online, greet people, bring flowers. Look at these flowers. Aren't they gorgeous? You should smell them. Keep our spaces beautiful and care for our children and youth. Gratitude to all who help us create our spaces for us to gather in community each week. If you are new joining us today, then again, welcome. I hope you were able to grab an order of service when you came in. If you're online, you can find the link to the order of service in the service description. This will help you follow along in our service as well as provide events or ways for you to connect deeper with our congregation. In addition, on the back page, there are tips to answer any questions you may have. And of course, if you have additional questions, look for somebody with an official name tag, and they'll be either able to help you or point you in a direction to get more information. We also have someone monitoring online to answer any questions you may have. This month, our Soul Matters theme is the practice of trust, and it is also the month that we engage our annual Canvas season. We will have many opportunities this morning to hear why we can put our trust in this community that holds us in stormy waters and reminds us to relish the calm when it happens. So I invite you to bring the fullness of your heart to this hour together, and let us worship together. Now is the time in our service we light our chalice. If you are home and have a chalice you'd like to light, please bring it forward. We have unison chalice lighting words in our order of service. Please join me in those words. We light this chalice for the light of truth, the warmth of love, and the fire of commitment. We light the symbol of our faith as we gather together. Now I invite you to turn and greet each other. Find people you haven't seen for a while that might be new faces or just you haven't seen. Online people, make sure you say hi.
go ahead and have a seat, although we're about to stand to sing the opening hymn, but I think we'll sing for you once. How's that? This month's hymn, if you'll turn in your hymnals, your gray hymnals, to 83. Turn to 83, and I and the choir will sing the melody through once, particularly if it's not familiar to you. It's a fabulous melody from the 19th century, the great composer Samuel Wesley. And it goes like, we've sung it before, so a number of you will know this tune. But let's sing it through once, and then Reiko will accompany us on all three verses as we repeat it together. Winds be still, storm clouds pass and silence come, peace grace this time with harmony. Fly, bird of hope, and shine, light of love, and in calm thereof find tranquility. Have you stand? Winds be still, storm clouds pass and silence come, peace grace this time with harmony. Fly, bird of hope, and shine, light of love, and in calm thereof find tranquility. Bird fly high, lift our gaze toward distant view, help us to sense life's mystery. Fly high and far, and lead us each to see how we move through the winds of eternity. Light illuminate our inward view, help us to see with clarity. Shine bright and true, so we may join our songs in new sounds that make full symphony.
Good morning. I want to introduce the two people who are part of a gorgeous foursome. The adults, though, agreed because they can grant consent to be our two co-hosts for this year's annual giving. Miriam and Harry are part of the core of our family ministry and also remind us with Oriana, who is not here today, but Elliot, who you have probably seen running the halls with his gorgeous white hair, blonde hair flowing behind him, remind us of the generations, one to the next, that we hand this off to, this place we call home. So I want to thank them for agreeing to be chairs of our annual giving and invite them to say a little bit more about their journey.
Hi, good morning. Our names are Harry and Miriam Yost Morin, and as Vanessa said, we're the parents of Oriana, age 14, and Elliot, age 3.
And we feel so honored to be helping our community, all of us here, the Unitarian Universalist Society of San Francisco, with the annual pledge drive. And please join us in this journey to our safe harbors.
We've been coming to this church for about 10 years now. From a history, I grew up in a UU church, first in New Jersey and then also in Texas.
For me, it was a much different kind of thing, a huge step to take. I'm from Germany, and I left behind my Catholic and Protestant upbringing. And completely done with any form of religious community. And at the beginning, I was very, very reluctant to even try this one out. But I'm still here 10 years on, and I am so grateful for my children to be part of this community.
Each of you has helped make this place what it is, and it has become for us and for our children a welcoming and safe space. It's a harbor that we come to after a stormy week. It's a place where we take a breath, where we repair our sails, and we recharge for the next week that lies ahead.
When our daughter, Oriana, was 5 years old, she started to ask questions. Her grandfather had passed away a few years before that, and she would wave at a star in the sky and excitedly shout, "Mama, Papa, I can see Grandpa."
She had watched a story in which children were praying to God to ask for help in a difficult situation. And one day she came to us, and she was about 4, and she said, "Can I pray?" "Of course." "Who do I pray to? Can I pray to the sun god?" "Yes."
And then she started to pray. She prayed to the sun god very sincerely to ask for her grandpa to not be a star, but to become alive again. And trying my very best not to cry, I had to explain to her that no God could really do that kind of thing in the way that she imagined it. Shortly after, we decided to take her here.
So she might not have received a definite answer to the question, but here she learned how to think about what is important to her and what she might believe in. She learned about other religions, and she posed her own question to this community, answered by Allison Jacks, which was, how was God made?
And in the years we've been here, we have made some very important friends. And as our family has grown, Oriana and now Elliot, we have grown to become a part of this community.
A few years ago, we lost a close family member in an accident, and we felt compelled to reach out to one of the ministers at the time, Allison, and ask her to come over to our house to be with us in that time of tragedy. In that moment, there was somebody there to sit with us, to share memories, to share about that soul that we had just lost to be with us.
And when my father passed away last year, both Vanessa and Laura and other close friends from the church reached out to us. And simply to know that we have a community ready to hold us in those really hard times helps with the healing. So thank you all for holding us.
Our son, Elliot, came into our lives through adoption. And again, it was this community that held us during those many years in which we were trying to conceive, we were thinking of alternatives. We decided on adoption, and finally, you all participated in welcoming this little boy into our community.
And outside of only our little 3-family family unit, we had talked to no one about our troubles to conceive. We're very private people. And it was 2 friends from church that I first opened up to about this very harrowing IVF process we were going through.
And after we decided on adoption, it was, again, one of the ministers at the time, Allison, who wrote a letter of support for our family to the adoption agency. And we all ended up adopting Elliot in 2021, and we held his name-giving ceremony here with you all at the end of 2021.
Both our kids really love coming here, and Oriana has developed a very strong sense of social justice. We're grateful to you all for fostering her kindness and her drive to make a change in this world. Helping with winter shelter meals, ongoing, learning about different cultures and religions, celebrating each person's voice. All this has played a huge part in her development. She now works in the RE program herself, a few Sundays a month, and she helps to nurture the younger kids and teaches them the values she now holds so dear.
And along with Oriana, her little brother Elliot has made this church and this community his own, and we want to give special thanks to Minister Laura and to his teachers, Bernasia, Chantanez, Vivian, Alicia, and Connor as well. Thank you for nurturing his sweet and silly personality.
For us, this church really has become a safe harbor, and we know we can come here no matter what life throws at us, and have the support of all our caring friends in this community.
Yes, this community is made possible by love and care and shared values, and also by our financial commitments. It is again the time of year when we all make our financial commitments for the fiscal year that will begin on July 1st. We make our commitments now so that the church can plan for what is to come. And we need your help to fund all the amazing activity and life here in this safe harbor of UUSF.
Last year, we raised an amazing $750,000 in pledges. And this year, our shared goal for the pledge drive is $765,000. And that reflects an increase in costs such as employee health, utilities. And we humbly ask each of you, if you have the means, to please raise your pledge by 5 to 10% this year, or more, of course, if you have to give more. We're really grateful for all you can and can give to this church. Thank you.
Our budget at the church is also struggling from a temporary loss of rental income from our long-term tenant in the back. We hope to have our preschool space generating rental revenue again as soon as possible, but it won't be immediately. So we have a place in the pledge form for those who have the ability and willingness to make a one-time donation to offset that loss. Thank you all in advance for all that you do pledge.
And there is a table in the gallery under our Journeying to Safe Harbors bulletin board, where you can get a pledge form, or you can hand in the one that came in the mail if you brought it in. And if you have any questions, there's people at the table from our stewardship team that can also answer those. And there's also an online form if you prefer to make your pledge that way.
And no matter how you make your pledge, when you do, please come to the table and get one of the origami boats.
They're
there.
beautiful.
Write your name on the boat and add it to the harbor. Please also take a piece of saltwater taffy while you're there. Note that folks who make their pledge before the end of the day on March 16th, which is midnight, will be eligible to participate in a lottery where the prize is 3 nights at the Vanderland's Tahoe Cabin. Yay! Thank you to Marty and Linda for that incentive to us all.
And then finally, the stewardship with members of our choir would like to invite you to join in the reception after church and to keep things on theme with our harbor idea. There's Mediterranean food, and that includes vegan and vegetarian options. And we just ask that everyone who gets food takes a modest portion first, so that everyone can be fed and then come back for more later. There might be leftovers. And we hope you feel the love and the gratitude we have for each of your commitments, and that having had lunch, you can stay for the amazing concert that happens after church, and you'll hear more about that in the service later.
So thank you all so much for being part of this amazing community, a safe harbor for ourselves and so many others for almost 175 years. Wow. Thanks for doing your part to keep it strong and secure in this important and stormy time that is the chapter for the care and keeping of this community and this place of joy and refuge.
And if you have any questions, we'll be around every Sunday this month, and we're pretty easy to spot because we usually chase after a 3-year-old little boy, and he runs around just as if he owns this place.
He doesn't?
Welcome to the ship. Join us.
Now is the time for our unison covenant. If you are at home, you can rise with us as well. If you would rise and state our promises that we make to ourselves and each other. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and freedom, and to help one another.
I invite us to take a deep breath and settle in. Bring ourselves fully to this time and space and take a moment for prayer and shared silence. Our lives are always in the swirls and eddies of what's going on inside us, mixed with the needs and invitations of those around us. And then, too, the clamor, the joys and nightmares and daily march of the larger world. To find our way amidst all these currents is to feel often without clear line of sight. Our feet in the mud, running over the stones or traversing the flat, dry places of the landscape, and sometimes hitting the deep holes where we submerge and swim. We do whatever the river of life asks of us and navigate in so much rush and the constant turbulence of change. This river of life that's never the same way twice. And so we gather today, each waiting in our own confluence of celebrations and stuck places, ways that have opened, some after a long time of waiting, and big questions or invitations waiting for us to choose a way. All this and more, you and I each are moving through. And we name, too, all that's swirling around us this last week. The precariousness of Ukraine and the ceasefire at threat in Gaza. The dismantling of vital institutions of government in Washington. The submission of too many leaders to false party loyalty at the expense of shared good. And emergency rooms in our own city struggling with the outbreak of flu that many of us ourselves are weathering. This and so much else to hold. So in the midst of it all, we pray for healing and hope. We set our sights on the best kind of courage. We pray for hearts broken open to moral imagination, maybe our own among them, and to creative, generative solutions to break through hard ground. And we give thanks for all the people we know who are responding to the tide of human suffering with efforts to ease that tide, intimate and systemic. And we give thanks for the gift of each day of life. And for all that helps us to be the people and the keepers of places that make more healing and hope possible. As I invite us into some time of shared silence, that expansive silence that makes room for all our hearts and spirits need to find in it. I invite us also in a world that doesn't have often enough places to hold and acknowledge grief. That for those who wish to, if you have lost someone you love in the last year or they're just present to you this morning in particular, to stand or put your hand on your heart, something that marks your silent witness to that loss, so that it not go unseen or unnamed, since those we loved and lost are so powerfully important a part of our lives forever. And so I invite us into shared silence. Our offering this morning will be given to support this community. If you are someone who brought your pledge form but is going to have to run out right after service and you want a boat added to the flotilla in our harbor, you can feel free to put that in the plate and we'll make sure to add you to the origami boats placed there today. And so our offering for the shared works and ministries of this community will be gratefully given and received.
There's a great camp meeting.
There's a great camp meeting. Lord, a great camp meeting in the promised land. Oh, walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk over, children, don't you get weary. Just to walk together, children.
Our reading today is a poem called First Lesson by Philip Booth from Life Selected Poems, 1950 to 1999. First lesson. Lie back, daughter. Let your head be cupped back in my hand, the cup of my hand. Gently, and I will hold you. Spread your arms wide. Lie out on the stream and look high to the gulls. A dead man's float is face down. You will dive and swim soon enough when the tide water ebbs to the sea. Daughter, believe me, when you tire of the long thrash to your island, lie up and survive. As you float now, when I held you and let go, remember when fear cramped your heart, when I hold you. Lie gently and wide to the light year stars. Lie back and the sea will hold you.
Thank you, Mark, and the choir for that. Sorry, one second. For that song that's so much more appropriate than if I'd had to choose the only sea-related song or water-related song that I knew, which was one my dad used to sing to me when I was little, which was, "What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor?" It does have that great paid, "Hey, hey, and up she rises." But anyway, it's not church appropriate the way yours was, so thank you. The story I've been told is that my grandfather, as a young child or teenager, once watched a boy drown in a river and never after insisted that his own children learn to swim as soon as they could. I didn't know that when my dad took me to the local pool in Los Angeles and taught me to swim, and when he took Lila to our local pool when she was small so she could feel comfortable and competent in the water. Like the daughter in Philip Booth's poem, getting her first lesson, swimming lesson, but lesson, I learned what to do, that you needed to know something to do when things got rough or I got tired, to find that position on the water where you can lie back, to quote the poet, gently and wide, to the light year stars lie back, and the sea will hold you. Water is such a great metaphor, and for so much. It's why we open our church year with it, each year with all of you bringing waters from your summer places of respite and work and reunion and retreat when we come back together to launch the year in September. Waters that remind us of all the different places that we come, like so many rivulets and raindrops and dewdrops and reservoirs to join into one river of life, never the same river twice, but always here to accept what it is that we have to offer and to offer what it has for us to accept. Water, this symbol of life, each of us, 60% of it by weight, each of us who can live a month or more without food, but no more than 3 days without water. Water that cleanses and refreshes. But water also storms and batters. We don't talk about that so much on Water Communion Sunday. We name more of the way that it gathers more force when it comes together, a metaphor for collective power, yes, but not the power it has to destroy. But it does have both, right? As life does, as human beings in collective, as we do. So when we were thinking about a theme for this year's canvas, the idea of safe harbor came up. Church as a safe harbor from the storms, this place that we can retreat to in the midst of a storm, to anchor for a while, and all that happens in safe harbors. And it felt right. I'm not a sailor. I don't know much about boats or harbors. But last summer, I went to visit a colleague and her husband who have a small house by the water in Gloucester, Massachusetts, or Gloucester. Gloucester is this famous harbor. It was one of the great fishing ports of the world. And though I never actually got to see Gloucester proper, my colleague and her husband live in this quiet place north of the main town. Their home is actually on this little inlet, but it's a short walk from a smaller public landing called Lane's Cove. A cove we walked to that night we were there to see sunset. Lane's Cove is this small, naturally sheltered bay. Long ago, its residents built granite walls from the stone in the local quarries across the front of the entrance to the cove. The walls, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 feet tall above the waterline, that protected the whole harbor except for this one open part between them that was maybe 10 feet in length for the boats to come safely through. I found some old public domain book about Gloucester from 1923 that someone had clearly taken from a University of California library and digitized. The author in it wrote the following about this little Lane's Cove. Lane's Cove used to be the center of an uncommonly prosperous community, as the granite breakwater and the ordered piles of stone still bear witness. The fish houses on the shore of the cove are very old, and fishermen have used them continuously from an early period in American history. The sleepy little town of today is strongly in contrast, though, to the lively village the old men still talk about when the quarries were still working, and a single grocer would keep all 5 delivery carts on the road with all the work they could jump under. The remnants of the old fish houses and shops, they were turned into small houses by the time I saw them, and there were a few remaining saunas, or what had been saunas from when the Finns came to work the quarries there. Apparently, though, Lane's Cove was home to some other necessary engagements that I feel it incumbent to name that this author also wrote about. He wrote, "It was in those good old days of Lanesville, which were a little more riotous than the present, that the village constable was attending a dance when at a preconcerted moment, someone put out the light and a couple of young men clapped the empty wooden basket over the constable's head so hard that his head burst through the bottom. In fury, he roared, 'As an officer of the law, I demand ye take it off.'" Oh, the wild days of Gloucester. So Lane's Cove is a small part of this bigger and more prosperous harbor. It turns out it was a place where people moored their boats and got groceries and handed over their fish for sale and took a sauna and also a place for dancing and a drink and playing some practical jokes on the local constable, too. It struck us, those of us thinking about this church and life together, how harbors were and are where we come home to. How a harbor is the place where sailors go after they've weathered a storm when they need to get a mast repaired or a hull fixed. Or how they go there just at the end of a long week or day on the sea to rest. It struck us how these were and are still the places where the boats and the crews provision themselves. Not to stay in the cove forever in the harbor, but to gather themselves up and to prepare for the next challenge or adventure. I know this is also where the sailors and captains would gather to share their tall tales. The funny ones, the strange ones, the scary ones. It's where people who are weathering the seas and the storms of life, as we all always must be doing, because we have no choice, where we come to gather wisdom and advice, and maybe even just the reassurance that we're not alone in what we face, though the truth is, day to day, we are often facing the winds and the rain on our own. Harbors, then, are this place we come to be safe, to regroup, to restore ourselves, to prepare each week, each day, periodically, before we raise the anchor and head out through the narrow entrance between the stones to endeavor into the world outside and all that blows and all that rages and all its challenges and tides and opportunities and undertows. The church is like that. It's a bit like Lane's Cove. This church, it was a beacon for anti-slavery sentiment in the 1860s, and for civil rights in the 1960s. This church that survived the great earthquake of 1906 and 1989 and has been a place where people could gather when their own lives literally crumbled around them. This church has stood up for unpopular causes, and it continues to be a beacon for progressive thinking and necessary change. This church where people come for a warm cup of coffee to share our tales, to learn from each other a little bit more about how to slay the dragons of oppression or fascism or advocate for the end of war or climate justice or any number of things that break our hearts. This very moment, we have 10 working groups starting to gather resources and respond to the 10 issues and initiatives that this community thought were important or might be in this particular post-election chapter of our city and our nation. And all the while, through all of it, this church has been welcoming families and officiating weddings and blessing babies and initiating young people into spiritual adulthood and honoring the legacy of the lives that we have loved and lost. And yes, dancing, sometimes with the constables, singing, welcoming those who also just needed space to regroup, to get sober, to sleep and get a meal in the winter months. Tonight is our last night of this year's hosting of the winter shelter. And we are the stewards of this place. Stewardship is an old-fashioned word, like covenant, another old-fashioned word. I love these old-fashioned words. Promises of the heart, not legal contracts, right? Covenant. The promises of the heart that actually are at the heart of what changes the world, what brings us fully to serve it, not legal contracts. Stewardship, I don't know that it's a particularly fashionable world in America in the capitalist framework of understanding that we're swimming in, because stewardship actually doesn't mean ownership, right? Not in the sense of any of us having shares or a deed that we can hold up in court that claims some part of this place. Church is this thing that you and I, and there are other things like that, the natural world, that we are given to take care of for a time. Handed to us by the generations seen who we met, who gave them to us, and those long before those folks whose ghosts and spirits linger here in its walls and in its commitments. And we're just merely the caretakers of places like this. It's an incredibly sacred and gorgeous expectation. In this month, when we're going to be talking about trust, think about plowing yourself in, as people have for 175 years, just even here, to a place whose existence relies on the ancient notion of stewardship and how wildly trusting that is. Here, we love and serve something. Hopefully we serve many things like this in our lives that is about more than what it does for us. Here, you and I, we agree to surrender, not my favorite word, but it has its place. Surrender to this body, to serve it, to merge like rain and dew and rivulets and rivers into the ocean that spills into this safe harbor. And right now, I don't need to tell you that this safe harbor will be vital. More so than usual, though it's always been necessary, for sure. The winds are kicking up and the rains are coming, and it's not clear how hard the earth will shake. And meanwhile, also, by the way, of course, I'm sure you've noticed provisions are getting more expensive, and we have a crew that needs to be paid a living wage, and lights and heat to turn on, and walls to keep strong. And so we'll need to give a little more than before. Even those stormy times can make us afraid and invite us to constrict. But we are the people who will get to be big in the face of the storm. This place wouldn't exist if the stewards before us hadn't realized the need to do likewise. And I should name that we have a boat that's moored in this harbor that isn't paying its rent, so we have a shortfall to cover too for any who want to make an additional gift. But we need everyone to give, and give what you can. Give so you own the sense of stewardship, so you're proud of what you give. I'll be raising my pledge. I thank you all in advance for doing what you can. Well, there's one more thing I want to say just this morning about Gloucester. Something I don't want to leave out, that just 5.5 miles south of Lanes Cove, right on the Gloucester Harbor proper, there is this place. It's originally the first Universalist church in Gloucester, and also the first Universalist church in America. The story, if you don't know it, is that the Reverend John Murray, who was a Universalist from England, who converted and was excommunicated from his home church and lost his wife too, and his 1-year-old 1 year after converting to Universalism, so abandoned his faith and thought he would come to this continent to start life over, that he had some conversion experience in the journey to the US. This man who thought that everybody was loved by God, not just the people who were like us, who thought that religion should be welcoming to all people. And so when he arrived, he found his way north along the coast to this safe harbor, and he founded this church. So there was more than one kind of safe harbor in Gloucester. You and I, we make safe harbors as much as we find them. We make them each generation by how we show up. We fortify the walls. We insist on keeping the entrance wide. We make safe harbors by welcoming the weary with tenderness and offering what rest and provisions we can share when we can. We make it by telling our stories to each other and gathering up what wisdom we can to guide us in our journeys. We rest and we sing and we dance and we stitch the tears in our sails so we can set out again to the wild seas of life, more provisioned, more restored for the run. We make our safe harbors for ourselves and everyone who needs them. The poet who wanted to prepare his child for how to survive the waters, he writes, "Remember when fear cramps your heart what I told you. Lie gently and wide to the light-year stars. Lie back and the sea will hold you. May this harbor, carved out of the broader sea and made calm by what we make of it, may it hold us all, and all who need it, as it has for the generations before us. And may our stamp upon the life we hand on when it's our turn to hand it on be that we left it whole and hearty for the battered and the weary and the seeking who came after us. And thank you all for doing your part, past, present, and future, for making it so. And I'll just put in a small hope and a chit that next year maybe we can work into our plans to install a sauna. Because I'm told some safe harbors had them. Blessings, my friends, and gratitude. Let's sing a song about another water image, fonts, fountains, springs that feed us with water for this life we live. It's hymn number 126 in your gray hymnal. Let's rise in body and spirit and sing together. I invite you to be seated. So worship ends and service begins. A reminder as we practice the stewardship of this place to take your pledge forms to the table or get one there and make sure to put your name on one of the boats in our flotilla in the harbor, which I expect is going to spill out onto the walls nearby. It's so large. Also, make sure you do so before the 16th for sure, so that you're eligible for the lottery for the 3 nights in Tahoe at the Vanderlyn's Cottage. And please go to the Martin Luther King room. It's set up for the reception after service with Mediterranean food so that you can be celebrated and thanked, but also fed, because after church, there is a new UU class for those of you who want to or are thinking about maybe joining this congregation or just want to find out more about Unitarian Universalism. And you, Emma, where are you? Emma's right back there with the scarf around her neck. Emma can show you where to go. And also, you can grab food and head out. But also, we have something else happening this week, I think, right?
Yes, 2 quick reminders. Today is the last day to easily purchase tickets for this coming Saturday evening's catered sing-along. To ensure enough more fabulous food, we need you to grab your ticket today. I will be manning the table along with Christine Patch-Lindsay out in the hall. So before, during, or just after the canvas lunch, find our table or just find me, because I will be around. There's another event. We feature our first in-house Scripps concert today at 1:30. Our very own Nancy Munn will be singing a fantastic recital of songs celebrating extraordinary women, accompanied by, as you heard to start our service today, an extraordinary pianist, Dr. Joachim Reinhuber, who is fresh from Texas, and he will be accompanying her. And he'll be heard, so welcome to you as we welcome and encourage all of you to stick around for this special 60-minute concert this afternoon. If you don't have cash for either next week's sing-along ticket or today's program, no worries. We take cards, checks, promissory notes, whatever. See you in a bit. Thank you.
And nice jewelry, too, I think, right? Yeah. Wonderful. I invite you as part of our sort of ongoing free and responsible search for truth and meaning that's part of Unitarian Universalism, so we can step out into the world and be responsible as we incarnate our values in the ways that matter, to take a look at all of the programming, all of the opportunities to learn more about important issues of the day. And also, if you want to or are thinking about that you might want to join one of the 10 working groups, post-election working groups, if you walk along the gallery past a bulletin board that's labeled Pastoral Care, on the flip side are sign-ups for those 10 groups, so you can see what they are, you can add your name, and we'll get you merged into those groups that are already, many of them, up and running. I do also want to make one plug for the minister's book group, whose sole organizing principle is the minister wants accountability, so she reads this book and interesting people to talk about it with. This month's book is Robin Wall Kimmerer's new book, a small book. Kimmerer, as many of you probably know, is a botany professor and citizen of the citizen Potawatomi Nation, who's a gorgeous writer about nature and its lessons and how to be in relationship to it. And this book, The Serviceberry, is beautiful. So please consider signing up. It's on Zoom, and join me later this month for the Minister's Book Group. This concludes our invitations, but more, of course, are in your order of service. And so, I'm going to ask Dennis to extinguish our chalice, knowing as we do so that we carry its light, its warmth, the fire of commitment with us as we leave this place and until we gather again. And then I'm going to invite us all to rise as we're able in body and spirit and join hands as we say our benediction. And now, in our comings and our goings, may the light of love shine upon us. Out from within us, be gracious unto us and grant us peace. For this is the day we are given. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Amen.